Thank you to all the attendees joining us today. Can I request my team to start playing the video?
The last 2 decades, we experienced the rise of Chinese photovoltaic companies and the transformation of LONGi from a pathfinder and an inventor of technology to an industry leader. LONGi was established in 2000 and changed the game rules of the industry by promoting monocrystalline modules in 2015. In 2016, LONGi's mono-PERC technology brought the industry into an era of high efficiency and low LID. In 2017, LONGi's bifacial PERC technology increases remarkable module power output with rare side irradiation. In 2019, M6 silicon wafers led the PV industry to an era of 450-watt ultra-high power. With strong innovations, LONGi has made numerous achievements like 24.06% efficiency of monocrystalline PERC cell, the highest production of bifacial monocrystalline modules in the world, continuous technology advances and LCOE optimization. Now, LONGi is about to set off another advancement in the industry once again. The latest LONGi high Mo5 modules with optimized LCOE, especially designed for large-scale PV stations, are now available. The power output of high Mo5 is up to 540 watts, with over 21% efficiency. The optimal size of the high Mo5 module, coupled with sophisticated construction, can reduce costs while increasing power generation. As seen in the PV station in Zhoushan, China, high Mo5 can significantly lower labor, land, and BOS costs and reduce LCOE. Also, the application of high Mo5 in Qatar has proved to be a remarkable improvement in cost reduction. The advanced technology of the high Mo5 leads to optimal LCOE, which is the result of LONGi's exploration of every detail of functionality. New M10 gallium-doped silicon wafer can reduce the linear power degradation to 0.45% per year. Compared with the traditional welding technology, LONGi's smart soldering technology reduces the tensile strength of the cell by 20%, by reducing the distance between cells by 2/3. This technology achieved a 0.3% improvement in module efficiency. High Mo5 follows a mature and reliable design path, framed, tempered glass on both sides to ensure the load capacity of the modules, with no crossbeam on the back to the module that blocks reflected light to ensure continuous and efficient power output. In practical applications, the size of high Mo5 is suitable for the main 1-portrait and 2-portrait horizontal single-axis tracking system. At the same time, it is perfectly compatible with the next generation inverters. The working current, including 15% bifacial gain, is kept within 15 amps, without the loss of current generation. Standardization, perfect adaptation, cost optimization, and high efficiency leads to optimized LCOE that enables high Mo5 to be one of the most valuable products on the market. The high volume production of high Mo5 is ready. By first quarter of 2021, global supply is expected to reach 13.5 gigawatts. The new high Mo5 joins the LONGi high Mo family, bringing in a new PV era with ultra-high value.
the native land of China to all corners of the world. From the seaside to the mountain tops, from the peaceful countryside to the bustling city, JA Solar is dedicated to the great cause of energy transition and innovation, a great journey that never stops. Driven by the concept of customer first and mutual value, JA Solar continues forging ahead. Dreams give us the power to imagine. Reality keeps us grounded, anchored in the present era and focusing on high-quality green development. JA Solar aims to unbundle the majesty of sunlight emanating in the universe and shapes this infinite energy into a road of new greatness by repurposing it for a higher calling. Beginning in 2005 when it was established, accelerating in 2007 when it was listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange in the US, and maturing in 2019 when it successfully relisted on the Shenzhen A-Shares Exchange. JA Solar has written a magnificent history through the powerful currents of those times. Throughout this journey, JA Solar has remained true to its sacred mission, develop solar power to benefit the entire human race, standing bravely on the tide and pressing ahead on firm footing. After steadily developing and improving over more than a decade, JA Solar has continued to build and perfect an integrated manufacturing chain covering silicon wafers, cells, modules, and power plants, all in an effort to achieve a vertical integration of manufacturing and marketing service systems, from the front-end products to the back-end power generation solutions. Innovation promotes advancement. Excellence produces miracles. With insight sharpened by the rapid fluctuations in the global PV market and adaptability forged by the ever-changing customer demand, JA Solar consistently gets its teams that are never satisfied to pull together and realize a road to stardom in the PV industry. Consistent quality upgrades, interminable cost reduction efforts, and effective process improvements have been the core of our efforts. JA Solar plays an active role in the digital and intellectualized transformation and upgrading, and strives to build a dual mode of intelligent manufacturing and intelligent operation by adopting such advanced technologies as big data, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence, which help to realize intelligent operation and maintenance management and quality control in the production stage, and therefore greatly enhances the security, smartness, reliability, and cost-effectiveness of the operation and maintenance of the solar power station during application stage. On this great journey of bringing grid parity across the PV industry, JA Solar produces premium cells, premium modules, and has developed an independent innovation mechanism by making continuous investment in R&D. By the end of 2019, JA Solar had been issued more than 779 patents based on its leading-edge R&D, maintaining a leading role in driving tremendous development in solar PV technology. On the foundation of leading park cell technology, JA Solar continuously optimizes module types and their component materials in order to keep improving product performance and bring down the overall LCOE for the entire value chain. The next generation of products coming out of R&D are exciting and will further contribute to the industry development. JA Solar's technology roadmap has attached great importance to perfecting the N-type solar cell, whose average conversion efficiency in mass production is estimated to exceed 25%. From China to the world, JA Solar is focused on bringing more light and hope to the entire human race, anchored in its foundation to build a road to prosperity within and beyond the borders. For more than 10 years, JA Solar has explored and succeeded to expand the overseas market, establish a global network of support, distribution, and world-class technical service. Presently, JA Solar manages 12 manufacturing sites and over 30 subsidiaries across the globe.
Hi, this is Iman. I'm GA Solar Sales Manager in North Africa and I'm based in Morocco.
Hi, this is Rasim, GA Solar Regional Sales Manager in Tunisia, Mali, Burkina, and Algeria, and I'm based in Tunisia.
Hi everyone, I'm Karim Mohi, JE Solar North Africa Sales Manager, and I'm based in Egypt.
Hello everyone, my name is Bryson Hillary, Sales Manager, JA East Africa, based in Arusha, Tanzania.
Hello, my name is JA Solar Sales Manager, Sadiki, based in Lusaka, Zambia.
Hi, I am Raveen Singh and I am the Senior Technical Manager for JA Solar based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Good day, my name is Daniel Pasca. I'm the Sales Manager Southern Africa at JA Solar based in Johannesburg.
Hi, this is Cindy. I'm JA Solar Regional Director for Southern Africa and based in Cape Town.
My name is Ojo Ayawale Collins, Sales Manager West Africa, working from Lagos, Nigeria.
We toil and sweat, we smile and persevere. We remain true to our original aspiration and keep our mission firmly in mind. We lay a road of sincerity that goes deep into our customer's heart. JA Solar, core value of putting customers first and continuously improving its service, tirelessly enhancing its quality, and seeking more sustainable production. Every technical process, every finished product, and lot that ships out all bring out the best. JA Solar and its goal of pursuing ingenuity, modesty, and excellence. Driven by a professional attitude of zero tolerance to quality defects, JA Solar carries out real-time and full process inspection on module production, and naturally its module products are accredited by the global certification and accreditation authorities to guarantee zero defects and long-run reliability. JA Solar is focused not only on the successful project-by-project supply, but also on the total life cycle of product, which is supported by its professional capability matrix. Today, in order to grasp the opportunities of the new PV era, JA Solar keeps an open mind and maintains a resolutely international outlook, constantly improving the sales and service network for the global market. JA Solar has played a large part in such monumental large-scale ground-mounted solar power projects as China Datong Photovoltaic Top Runner Power Demonstration Project, China Qinghai UHV Yellow River Hydropower Project, Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, US Utah, Pakistan Punjab, etc. And also played a big role in the world-famous landmarks such as China Beijing's Daxing International Airport, Marina Bay Sands Singapore, the Swedish Royal Palace, Audi Hungary factory, and many others. JA Solar has established strategic partnerships with many top enterprises in the world, while its number of customers across the globe has been over 33,000. Time does not stand still and is the only non-renewable resource. Standing at the starting point of a new era, JA Solar will undertake 5 development strategies: market globalization, product value realization, capital securitization, management digitalization, enterprise platformatization, and work with business partners to build an ecosystem of intergrowth, regeneration, and symbiosis. JA Solar is committed to the cause of benefiting the whole world with this green energy source. Harvest the sunshine. JA Solar.
Hello and very good morning and good afternoon to the attendees who are joining from India. This is Priyanshi here and it's my pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Solar Quarter and First View Group to our virtual event on SolarRoofs, Southern Africa, policies, business and market trends. So in this event today, we will discuss Southern Africa's solar rooftop mission, key challenges and opportunities in PV rooftop segment, technology advancements, and investor perspective in commercial, industrial, and residential space. So I would like to thank our sponsors, Longi Solar and JA Solar for joining us today. Let us begin with our first presentation on solar rooftop opportunities in Southern Africa by Mr. Jaco Botha, who is the CEO of SolarRoofs.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I'm just bringing my presentation into view. Perhaps I'll just give it a little while just to at least come up. Yeah, I thank everyone for joining. It is actually great to spend some time with you today. So every hour, 430 quintillion joules hits the Earth. That's the amount of energy that the sun irradiates to the Earth every hour. The entire human race consumes 410 quintillion joules in a year. So really, in summary, every hour we actually receive more energy from the sun than what we would consume as human race in an entire year. Just ponder on that a little bit. Hi everyone, I'm Jaco Botha. Not here to talk about me, but really just to share knowledge. But this is just briefly who we are. SolarRoofs, we've completed just over 100 megawatts of plants specifically in the CNI space, in rooftop and in ground mount systems, and we do the full scope from the feasibility all the way through to the O&M side. Founded the company back in 2010, so fortunate to spend some time with you today. I guess the first question, and JA and both Longi, but thanks JA, you also actually flowed nicely into the point I want to make here is, why are we here today? And why is this important for us to do over and above the economics behind it? Is the fact that the world is in a carbon tailspin. We need to do something right now. I don't think it's really a discussion anymore whether global warming is a fact. It really is a scientific proven fact. And if we don't act now, every single one of us, our children's children, most likely won't have a planet, or the planet won't even exist in the same form that we're currently experiencing and fortunate to have. Perhaps just a quick snapshot of solar PV specifically, and that's why we're here today. What has it done? What has the pricing trends of this technology done over the last 10 years? It's essentially gone from probably one of the most expensive forms of energy generation to the cheapest form available to us humans, and still declining in cost. As noted both in Longi and JA's videos, a lot of efficiency improvements are being made. Economies of scale are being applied. So it really is absolutely the future for all of us to go. Perhaps just looking at global PV capacity, and this is a report we actually really keep a close eye on, is the IRENA Global Capacity Report. Probably not news to a lot of you guys out there really involved in this space, but perhaps just to point out, irrespective or even within the pandemic that the world has seen in the last year and a bit or 2 years now, the world has still increased the capacity to new record levels of installed solar PV, all the way up to 760 gigawatts of installed capacity. Now, in relation to, relating it to something interesting or relevant to us, and just going on to the next slide, is if we were to look at capacity added by various countries. Now, 760, that's the total installed capacity to date, 2020. If we look at Vietnam, just Vietnam added 11.1 gigawatt in 1 year. Now, to put that into perspective, in South Africa, the country has been developing 2 coal-fired power stations. Most of you might be aware of them, called Medupi and Kusile. Each of those power stations' entire capacity is 4.8 gigawatt. And it's taken more than a decade, and there's still a couple of challenges. At least it's finally getting to that point. But to put it in perspective, cheapest form of energy, and Vietnam managed to do that full capacity, or more than what we've been able to add in coal-fired power stations in just 1 year. Obviously, the next question, and that's very important, and Tony, I believe we're definitely going to be talking through this, is really storage of it. So obviously your first reaction would be, yes, but solar is only during the day. Fair enough. That is where the next part and the next really big revolution is happening right now, and that's in the storage space. We are seeing it on the ground. We are seeing a lot of commercial uptake and residential, but commercial specifically uptake in the storage space. And it really is on a massive price trend decline at the moment. If I rewind back to 2010, that number, the full dollar per kilowatt hour, if we're looking at specifically just at lithium ion, now there's a lot of other technologies out there as well. I'm sure Frank, also one of our speakers, might share a little bit on that as well. But back in 2010, the dollar per kilowatt hour rate for storage was $1,000 per kilowatt hour, where it's come down to that 245, and we're still seeing that trend going down. So absolutely convinced, we believe this future of energy generation is renewables, solar PV being probably one of the biggest part of that, with storage. Now, what is the potential of solar PV? Now, I mentioned that, in 1 hour, we receive sufficient energy from the sun to power the world for a full year. Now, put it into a different perspective. We actually did a little map. So how big an area would you need to generate the world's power? And this is actually what we found. It's actually not a massive block, and this is really just big topo of South Africa. Now, duly noted, you would note that little red block is pretty much where I'm sitting here in Gauteng. Now, there's a lot of roofs over there, and that's exactly our point. Those roofs need to be covered with solar panels, and there's no reason not to. So I think that's one of the big discussions for us today. Perhaps then a little bit of industry news in South Africa, where we are. Looking back into the history, where back in 2017, in South Africa specifically, there was licensing, or we didn't have licensing requirements for systems that were installed for own use. But back in 2017, a new schedule came out, the Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulations Act, that actually put a 1 megawatt cap on those systems. So from 2017, the end of 2017, everyone has just been building 1 megawatt plants, and there's been a lot of them going in. There's been a lot of lobbying, a lot of work from industry and various industry bodies to get the government to actually increase that. And to everyone's elation, President Ramaphosa announced very recently that cap is actually going to be increasing to 100 meg. Now, it's still in process at the moment, so the schedules are being drafted, but at least what the expectation is that for self-consumption, you would still be able to even go bigger than that. But if you go over 100, you would need to apply for a license, and it's still quite a big process. The good news of that is that the estimate is that we would be able to add, and we as a whole industry would be able to add 5 gigawatts of installed capacity by 2025. That would make a massive impact and bring much needed relief for the current load shedding we are experiencing. So yes, that is me for today. Looking forward to the panel discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Back over to you.
Hello.
Hello,
Thank
yes,
you so much for your valuable insights. Now, let us proceed with the techno-commercial presentation by Mr. Kevin Robinson, who is the Senior Technical Sales Manager ME of Longi Solar.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and Yaki, thanks for sharing the information. Just one note, you did present that pricing has been decreasing, but there are a few issues currently, and obviously we have a little bit of a blip on the, at least for the next couple of months, maybe until the end of the year, but hopefully once we're over that, the downward trend of solar PV will start decreasing again. So we saw quite a lot of information in the video, but I thought I'd just share a few quick updates. About Longi, so last year was a pretty good year for us. Just under 8.5 billion in terms of operating income, 1.3 billion in net profit, and one thing that we pride ourselves is the amount that we actually invest in research and development. So technology is core to Longi, and we certainly are the biggest investor in research and development in this space. So last year, just under $400 million in research. If we look at the numbers that we've invested since 2012, it's about $1 billion, over $1 billion in investment in research and development. So technology is part of our DNA. Some other numbers, as I mentioned, 2020 was a really good year for us. We shipped, we were the first company that shipped in excess of 20 gigawatts in a single year. So the number that we hit was just under 25 gigawatts. And currently we're looking at about 50 gigawatts of module capacity. Of course, the silicon is quite a big portion of our business as well. And currently we've got roughly 40% market share in the silicon wafer business as well. So interestingly, in the news, there were some mentions of N-type technology. So this is part of the research and where we're investing heavily is the N-type technology. But recently, some records that we've hit in the last months. So we're quite proud of those efficiency records as well. Just some history about Longi as well. We have always been a mono company. So really have led the transition from a heavily dominated polycrystalline module technology, led that transition into mono PERC and to a market size, to a market is now roughly 95% dominated by mono PERC technology. So we've led that transition. We've also led the transition to larger wafer sizes, which is part of the reason why the operational cost or manufacturing cost of modules has come down. And hopefully after this little blip on the horizon, that we'll see that continuing, that downward trend to continue. So something that's also important to us is quality. It's an issue that comes up quite a lot. If you start to see some of the reports and this has been over the last few years, 25 to 30% of solar assets are underperforming. And what is quite evident is that the IEC standards are not sufficient. So we invest a lot in extended reliability and durability testing, as well as verification with some external labs. So energy generation awards from PV Magazine, All Quality Matters from TV Aroundland, but I think these two tests from RATC and PVL are quite important testing, because what they do is go beyond the IEC standards and they start to do sequential testing. So starting to do some like, for example, humidity freeze damp heat testing in sequences together with ultraviolet. So instead of doing single testing on the different tests, we start to do sequential testing. So we start to see the degradation that really reflects what happens in the real life. Something that's also quite important to note is that a lot of the assets that are underperforming will actually start to manifest in the rooftop industry. And of course, the reason why this is it's a much hotter environment. So obviously, the hotter the environment, the quicker these defects manifest themselves and start to impact the performance of the modules. So, you know, where you start to see an asset that starts to underperform, say from year 6 to 8, by choosing a reliable partner that is investing heavily in these kind of quality control, it does impact the energy yield of that plant over a lifetime. So if you can get, you know, even if it's 2-3% increase in energy yield over a 25-year period, that's a significant amount of energy. So just with regards to the PV Evolution Labs, the testing there and the RATC, in both of those, Longi has been a top performer. And when we talk about top performers, we've been a top performer in every single one of those categories. So the latest PV Evolutions labs testing, we're the only manufacturer to be top performer in every 6 of those categories. And RET testing, the only manufacturer to perform or top performer in all of those 8 categories. So I think that really shows that we invest heavily in quality and reliability as well as performance. So if you look at those 3 different aspects, your top performance are right in the center there. Yeah, so let's have a look at bankability. This is also something that's quite important for us. Obviously, we've seen this, what they term the solar coaster, and you see these companies growing and then hitting financial issues and then starting to decline. So one thing that we're quite proud of as a company is that we are probably the most bankable company. And this is reflected across a number of different references, looking at Bloomberg New Energy Finance, at the Altman Z scores, and then obviously the latest metric, which is the PV Module Tech Supply Pyramid, which looks not only at financials, but looking also at technology and looking at production capacity. Product range, it was covered in the video, but I think one of the key differentiators for us is that we use gallium doping in our solar cells. Industry is heavily dominated by boron doping. The advantage of the gallium doping, it is a bit more expensive process, but it gives us a much better stability. So you don't have the boron oxygen complex, which causes the light-induced degradation, LETID, in the solar cells. So by having a low degradation, not only in the first year, but over a 25, 30-year period, it allows us to give or have a better energy production over the lifetime of that solar asset. And then finally, what's next? You might have seen this in the news, but what we're doing is starting to move into the N-type technology. So similar to the boron doping, N-type technology has got a number of benefits with regards to degradation and stability. So once again, we're leading that transition into a new era of high efficiency N-type technology. The last thing I just wanted to touch on is sustainability. So this is something that's also been a core principle of LONGi. It was announced at COP21 by the chairman of LONGi that where he announced the Solar for Solar program. So for quite a long time, the mindset of LONGi is that we want to produce renewable energy from renewable energy sources. So this is how the Solar for Solar program came about. We've also committed to the RE100. And part of this is that we have a vision that by 2050, the entire world will be carbon neutral by using 100% renewable energy. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for the insightful knowledge. So after this, we will be having techno-commercial presentation by Mr. Ravin Singh, who is the Senior Technical Manager, Africa of JA Solar.
Good morning, all. How are you? Just give me a few seconds to get my presentation on the slides. So thank you for the introduction. As mentioned, I am Ravin Singh. I'm the Senior Technical Manager for JA Solar. I take care of the Africa region. And this morning, these are the subjects that I'll present to you. Brief overview of JA Solar, design ideas behind one of our products, Deep Blue 3, advanced technologies and superior quality, a global view, technical highlights of the Deep Blue 3, and a few project references. So JA Solar was founded in 2005. It's a Fortune China 500 company. We have 11% of global market share, 3.75 billion in revenue 2020, and 63 gigawatts of cumulative shipments throughout the world. And we have 12 global manufacturing bases, approximately 25,000 employees, and 33,000 customers worldwide. We are a global leader in technology. So we are world leader in cell technology. We hold the patent for PERC technology, first company that supplies PID resistant modules, provider of approximately 15% for the first phase of China's front runner project, which was based in China, obviously. World leader in cell mass production and shipment for 8 consecutive years. Technology innovation is powered by years of strong R&D efforts. Just as as a previous presenter mentioned, we base a lot of our revenue or income on R&D. Again, solid finances, shipment volume just under 16 gigawatts, 4 billion in revenue. Net profit to equity holders of the company is about 220 million USD. Total assets is just under 6 billion USD. Yeah, year-on-year growth, we experienced 22.17% year-on-year growth on total revenue. On net profit attributable to our equity holders, we had just under 21% increase in that year-on-year end. Total assets grew by about 30%. And overall, we had about 83% growth to in terms of net assets attributable to our shareholders of the company. We are also a top bankable brand. This comes from Bloomberg, NEF. So yeah, we're quite bankable in that aspects of things. And then just some history on the technology itself. In the early 2000s or 2009, we were between 2009 and 2013, the amount of wattage was limited to just under 325 watts that you could get out of a panel. Then PERC technology was increased. With PERC technology, it allowed the wattage for a panel to be pushed up a lot more. So we went from 325 right up to 365. In terms of the amount of wattage you could get out of the same space of a panel. And then there's been a few other changes in terms of bus bar technology, the sizing, in terms of the cell, which was introduced in terms of increasing efficiency and driving up the wattage on a cell, on a panel, sorry. Yeah, and just as I explained, how to enhance solar module power. So the efficiency of monocrystalline cells has increased from 17% to 23%. And this has happened in a relatively short period, from between 2009 and 2020, mainly based on PERC technology. The advancements also you would find is based on anti-reflective coating glass, thicker extra soft ribbons, high transmittance EVA, half-cut cells, multi-bus bars, different types of technology encapsulation like shingles, paving, high density, that sort of things. And the enlargements of wafer sizing, it went from 125 millimeters. At the moment, we're sitting at 182 millimeters, and some modules have 210 millimeter wafer sizings on it. And yeah, what does this effect have to do on the this thing BOS core? Because as mentioned from Yaku from SolarRef, I mean, what BOS is this thing directly related to the LCOE costs of a system, and that's the idea here is to drive down the LCOE cost of a system. And here you can see, if you can see my pointer, that's where we're sitting at the moment. 545 watts is where your system cost has been driven down to, and we're looking at pushing it down a bit more in terms of that. So what does what's the correlation between a variable BOS, or correlation between a BOS and efficiency? As you can see on this curve, as efficiency picks up, it drops down the cost of the BOS. So that's the idea, is to pick up efficiency on your panels, which therefore translates down to end users or to EPCs having a lower LCOE cost. So then the question then relates is, do we just start making bigger panels in terms of sizing? That's not really the idea. The idea is to create efficiency within the same amount of same amount of square meters, or same amount of space. Why we want to do that? Because we want to limit risk down to our to the EPCs or to the end users. And what risks are there by just increasing the size of panel is, I mean, you at mechanical load risk, you at transportation and installation risk, and you at structural loading and capacity risks. So any one of these risks, by increasing these risks, you're increasing the cost, and that's not what the idea is. The idea is to reduce costs and to reduce risk. So therefore, we are trying to stick within trying to keep our panels within a certain size, and not just increasing the size of panels dramatically. What we are basing our technology on, or what our technology is based on, is a lower higher voltage and lower current. So the equation for power is power is equal to voltage times current. How you increase power in the panel is either by increasing voltage or increasing current. And as I mentioned, our basis is on increasing the voltage and reducing reducing current. By reducing current, that has the downward effect, or has the effect downstream by reducing balance of system costs, where your other items connected to the plant don't have to have higher current ratings. Yeah. And in this, on this screen, you can see exactly how we're doing it in terms of a 78 182 wafer module. You can see exactly for 590 watts here on this one, and 590 watts on a different type of module with the same amount of wattage. The direct difference is that here you can see our voltage is a bit higher on that side, but our current is a lot lower. It's almost 4 amps difference. And what effect that has done, it reduces CTM loss, and this thing reduces the resistance loss. Your module operating temperature is a lot lower. And this was actually a study that was done in, I'm not going to say the city name because I'm going to butcher it, but it was done in China last year in August. And you can see here with the modules and reduced current, what actually is happening on the same type of panel. So the solar module temperature becomes higher if ISC is higher. So basically, if the current is higher, the module temperature goes higher, and if module temperature goes higher, your losses start picking up, and therefore your LCOE starts picking up. So it has that effect on things. This survey was actually done in conjunction with JA Solar and TUV Nord. And here you can see in terms of module operating temperature, what is actually happening across different modules. So during higher irradiance period, the average module operation temperature gap between a 182 millimeter module and larger carbon modules is about 1.7 degrees. So on a on a 182 millimeter wafer module, your operating temperature is 1.7 degrees lower, therefore keeping your module a bit cooler. And this is the effect that it has on on actual power output in terms of in terms of that study that was done. You can see the larger current module is slightly lower than the 182 module in terms of power output that's produced on the exact same site. So therefore, that's where our design idea is for the Deep Blue 3, which is one of our main products which we are producing at the moment. The idea is a higher VOC with a lower ISC to reduce LCOE. So in terms of technology, this is what we have available in the market at the moment in terms of latest technology. There is a lot more later or larger panels on the market, but predominantly this is what is marketed, because this is what is what's predominantly produced. In terms of international accreditations, we have all the standard international accreditations, and we've been the top brand for PV Seal, a winner for the last 5 years in a row. In terms of a global view, this is just some of the strategic partnerships that we have out there. I mean, a few of the names stick out, like Enel, Asionia, guys like that. And again, going back to the highlights of Deep Blue 3, going back to the product, it's a 182 millimeter wafer. It comes in it's half cut. You get 54, 72, and 78 wafer modules. This is what the product looks like. It's built, or it's significantly R&D spend has been put into it to reducing the LCOE for end users. And you can see the change in, or the upgrade in PERC technology. This was the older technology. It's moved up in technology in terms of being able to lower temperature, the temperature coefficient on the module. This is what a M10 wafer looks like. We've also have gallium doping in terms of that allows degradation in terms of single glass module to be at 0.55% per year after the second year, and on double glass modules it's 0.45% in terms of degradation. It's multi-bus bar technology. We have 11 ribbons. What we've noticed and how we've managed to increase efficiency is by introducing a round bus bar. This allows the sunlight to be reflected back within the panel, which increases efficiency, versus a square or rectangular ribbon, which just directly reflects sunlight. So half cell technology, as I mentioned, this allows the module to stay a lot cooler. It also enhances mechanical load capacity, so it makes the module a lot stronger. That's the, as I mentioned, these are the summary of the Deep Blue 3 here. This is from Q2 2021. This year, we've in terms of this thing, distribution, 540 watts on the single glass module is just is around 50%, and the 535 watts on the double glass module is around 50%. These are just a few project references in terms of rooftops. We have a lot more references that are out there. It's just a few that I've picked up. There's a 70 kilowatt rooftop down in Cape Town for Boston Breweries that was commissioned in 2017. There's a 3.2 megawatt Aromax solar plant in Dubai. There's another 2.7 megawatts, which was done in Jordan Islamic Bank on a rooftop, and 1.6 megawatts in Windhoek, Namibia on the mall. Yes, thank you, and that's it from my side.
Thank you so much, sir, for the valuable insights. So now it is the time to start with the most awaited panel discussion. So the session experts joining us today are Mr. Tony Toyu, who is the founder and CEO of Renewables in Africa, who is also the session chair for today. Mr. Jaco Botha, who is the CEO of SolarRoofs. Mr. Frank Spencer, who is the head of deployment Pushwell Energy. Mr. Frederick Opoku Ayekum, who is the senior consultant EcoSource Canada. Mr. Tabo Moyo, who is the business development lead, Oman Green General Energy, and Mr. Danel Pasker, who is the state manager of Southern Africa, JA Solar. Mr. Kevin Robinson, who is the senior technical sales manager, Logi Solar. So I would like to hand over the session to Tony sir to take the discussion ahead with other speakers.
Okay, excellent. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Continue.
Okay, excellent. So, well, I have to say, I had a brilliant time so far. It's almost an hour, and then I was actually completely mesmerized by the presentation that I've seen from two manufacturers and then one developers. And clearly, I think they set the bar quite high, right? And I'm hoping that our panel will reflect the level of information that we did get. So for those of you who don't know me, so I'm Tony Toyu, founder and CEO of a company called Renewables in Africa. So in short, can you hear me, Ravin?
Give me some water, please.
Okay. I think Ravi, you want to go on mute. Don't worry, I'm going to get you some water.
Sorry about that.
But after you speak. But having said that, you had the presentation, so I can give you. Jacob is actually giving you. I think he's feeling hot because we're talking about sun here. He's feeling hot, so he needs some water. So getting back on track of what I was saying. So I was simply saying that the industry is doing very well, I have to say, and then the presentation reflected that. So if we're looking at some fact, because actually facts speak, and that's what telling us where we're heading to. So the global capacity, we're talking about 700 gigawatts at the moment. So to give you an idea for people that will not be familiar with the industry, so that's about the size of 700 small nuclear power plants, right? So that's what we have right now. And out of those 700 gigawatts, about 1.5% is the African capacity. I know this is not huge, right? So we would definitely want to see a lot more, because looking at the potential, we can achieve a lot more. And that's the reason we're here today. We're here to talk about that. And what we have done, we have assembled a range of experts to take you through all the different aspects of this industry. And I would say, in fact, if there is one expert that you can't see on the screen here, they're not really an expert of the sector. I'm just joking. So what we're gonna do before we can kickstart the conversation, we're just gonna give the chance to each of the speakers to very briefly introduce themselves. I know you've heard from Jacob, Ravin, and Kevin, but they're still gonna speak a little bit, maybe a little bit shorter than other people. But I'm gonna come to them in last. So first, if I can go with you first, Frank, if you can have a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, and after that, I have Tabo and Daniel. So Frank first, please.
Thank you, Tony, and good morning to the audience. It's lovely to be here today. Yes, I'm Frank Spencer. I have recently joined Bushveld Energy, which is a company developing local South African vanadium redox flow batteries. We're looking to use the vanadium that we mine out of our mines into these types of batteries. And I think there's huge synergies between storage and solar. As everyone has spoken about how big the solar market is, we're reaching points where the grid and the size of projects are becoming constrained because there's, in a sense, too much solar on the grid. And I think simply batteries allows us to deploy even more solar. So it's a very exciting complementary technology. So very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Excellent. We're definitely going to be touching on storage because I have a specific question for you. So Tabo, if you want to go next, please.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tony. Thank you to the Solar Quarter team and Sangeeta. Thanks for the invite. Quite an honor to be a part of the panel. Looking forward to engaging with some colleagues that I've dealt with over the last 10 years, in which I've been in the energy space. So I'm one of the co-founders and executive director of Oman Green Energy, in charge of business development. And Oman Green Energy is a South African company that focuses on project development, specifically renewable energy projects, and an IPP covering the commercial, industrial, and utility space market segments within sub-Saharan Africa, with a particular focus on the SADC block. Now, as a project developer, we look to take projects from concept or feasibility stage right through to operation and maintenance as an independent power producer, using various financing and funding structures to ensure value to our customers. So thank you once again, and looking forward to the discussion that's soon to follow.
Excellent. That's great. So Daniel, if you want to go next, please, if you don't mind.
Thanks very much, Tony. Thank you very much, everyone, for allowing us the opportunity to speak today. So my name is Daniel Paska. I'm the sales manager for Southern Africa at JA Solar. Obviously, JA Solar has already been introduced. We are a tier 1 module manufacturer. We have quite a strong presence throughout Africa and globally. And if you look at Southern Africa, we probably have about a 30% market share at this stage, continually growing and continually, pushing projects out.
Okay, excellent. So Frederick, if you can introduce yourself, please. Frederick, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay, while Frederick is getting ready, so let me go back then to you, Jakob, and then we have Kevin and Ravin.
Thank you, Tony. Look, I'll not bore you even more with about myself. As I say, really just in summary, to say we're passionate about this industry. We believe we're literally just starting off where we are at the moment. We're literally at the beginning, and perhaps just to tie in with you, Africa, watch this space. World, we are coming.
Excellent, excellent. So Kevin, please. You're on mute, please.
Yeah, I spent quite a lot of time talking, but just if we look at the African market, almost 600 million people have no access to electricity. A lot of those people are in rural areas, and I think from our perspective, the South African market is approaching a stage where we need storage. So Frank's discussion will be quite topical. But really, I think we need to focus more on Africa and working on those mini grids and electrification.
Excellent. Ravin, can you, I'm hoping that now you're not thirsty anymore, so you can say a couple of words.
I've had my drink of water, so I'm good now. Yeah. So, I mean, I've also spoken a lot. I've introduced the company JA Solar. So, in terms of the African market renewables. I think that's the space where everyone needs to be at the moment. It's progressing. We have the sunshine. Let's put the solar down. Yeah, I think that's it for myself.
Excellent. So Frederick, so hopefully you were not going to pick up some glass of water as well, and you can speak now. Frederick, can you hear us now? And then if yes, can you say a couple of words to introduce yourself? Hopefully Frederick is good to go now. Okay, it looks like maybe Frederick may be boycotting me. No, that's fine. I'm sure he has a couple of technical issues, but I'm sure as soon as he's ready, so Sanjita will let us know, or Priyanshi will let us know, and then we'll give him a chance to introduce himself. So, okay, gentlemen, as I say, it's a distinctive pleasure for me to talk to you about this topic, which is very much in our heart, right? And as Yeko was saying, how can we make sure that the space is finally ready in Africa to completely blossom, right? To explode and to go forward. And this is what we're going to be talking about. But as we know, we are very much regulation-driven sector. That's where it starts, and obviously the private sector will pick up later to make it as big as what he can be. So that's why I wanted us to have a quick understanding of that first. I like to understand, and Tabo, I'm looking at you because I know you talked about your company doing business development. And I think from conversation we had, you wanted to say a couple of words on that. I wanted to know whether you can tell us a little bit more about the current policies that are driving the sector, but also talk to us about what can be done to really unleash this potential. So if you have a couple of words to say there, please.
Right. Thanks for that, Tony. So I think at a macro level, one of the key policy drivers, and Yaku alluded to this in his presentation, is really around climate change and the impact, the negative impact that it has on the world. And so you've got initiatives like the Paris Climate Agreement, which is essentially a legal agreement binding the signatory countries to reduce carbon footprint, if you will. And then as you zoom into the various country, call it micro level scenarios, particularly in the African continent, you have issues, and I think Kevin alluded to this previously, around 600 to 700 million people on the continent without access to electricity. You've got the rampant power outages, which most South Africans are quite familiar with now, driving the sector, right? And then when we talk around the issues of government subsidies and kind of how the energy markets are structured, you have initiatives like various feed-in tariffs and similar incentives and schemes that are trying to get alternative energy sources and generators on the market to try and curb those challenges faced at the moment. And I think at a very high level, certainly from my perspective, those are a handful of the key drivers, both policy and kind of situational, if you will.
Okay, that's thanks for that. That's very helpful, because when we want to look at a discussion such as the one we're having today, is very important to basically to set the background so people really understand. So you talked about the policies that are driving the sector. I've clearly understood that climate change is a big driver. We have some initiatives, like for example, feed-in tariffs we're pushing forward, and I'm sure as well, program like the RIP in South Africa clearly has been driving not only South Africa, but the whole of the continent. But I also wanted to know, so because we're going to be talking a lot about the CNI space today, because the CNI space represent about what I was reading not long ago, 75% of the energy demand in at least sub-Saharan Africa. So that's quite significant. And what we're saying here is we want that space to clearly sort of work with solar, like Jacob was saying, cover all the roof with solar. We want to do that. But I was wondering, as we're speaking today, do we have an idea of what the size of the market currently is, and how can we double that? So I think because it's such a generic question, I'm just gonna want to leave the floor open. If one of you maybe has an idea what it is before I can continue going around for the question for every speaker. Anybody has an idea what's the current size of the market? Yeah, Frank want to jump.
So Tony, if I can jump in there, for my sins, I'm also quite involved with the South African Photovoltaic Association, and we've done quite a bit of work trying to gauge how big the market is in the C&I space for PV projects. And perhaps the most compelling way of working that out is to look at the import numbers for solar modules plus the local manufacturing. And what we're seeing is numbers that are absolutely astounding, that this market is growing so fast in South Africa, and it's all happening despite the complexity of the regulatory environment. To give you an idea, I think this year alone, we're estimating that it could be as much as 400 megawatts of C&I PV plants built already. And that means, you know, that and that's in a constrained environment. As was touched on, we can at the moment only build projects under 1 megawatt. So if in sort of half a year we've built that many projects, I mean, we're talking about thousands of projects that have been built this year alone. And that's off the back of an estimated installed capacity at the end of 2020 of about 1.3 gigawatts of rooftop and ground mount, but commercial industrial solar PV. And so this is, you know, I think that makes South Africa one of the most exciting markets for commercial industrial projects. And when if the lid comes off and the as we're expecting that it should now be significantly easier to build bigger projects up to 100 megawatts, we can expect that number to grow exponentially still. And obviously sitting on the battery side, that's also super exciting for the storage side, because to drive bigger penetration of PV, we are going to need storage as a complement to that. And so we've seen that also in 2020, in the residential sector, South Africa was the 6th largest market for storage. And if you consider how big other markets are in the world, for South Africa to come in number 6 on batteries for houses points to the trend. You know, obviously that's people responding to load shedding and wanting to have grid security, but that same trend is going to flow into the C&I, into the mining, and into the utility space with much bigger both PV and battery projects.
I think that's excellent. And the one thing I want to clarify here, yes, as we're talking about rooftop, so I've talked about C&I for industrial, but clearly we should not forget about the residential as well. And you've done the right thing here, Frank, to mention that. It's just that in terms of size, obviously C&I tend to be bigger, and that's what we tend to sometimes drive the market a little bit more. So Jacob, if I can come back to you, because you've done a very good analysis at the beginning, right? So giving us some high-level figures for us to look at, starting from where the carbon emission is right now, as to obviously what can we do and how solar is definitely participating in making the this picture change. So I wanted to know, because you've been in the industry for such a long time here, so you are one of the dinosaurs now, I'll put it that way. So at such a young age. So what kind of best practice would you advise we want to be looking at, especially for people that are stepping into the sector, or maybe people already in the sector, but want to look at that to make sure that we can grow the sector a lot faster. So what have you seen and would you recommend to people?
Thank you, Tony. Certainly a first for me to be called a dinosaur, but thanks for that. I'll take it in the positive note. So look, if you're looking at best practices, and I think it's important to have a holistic approach when you are designing or building a system for a client. Often guys get stuck on just looking at generation, but if we are talking specifically C&I and residential clients, it doesn't matter. If you are building a plant to generate the power for an end user, so it's what we refer to as the embedded generator, you first need to have a look and understand what the consumption is of that specific client, whether it's a household, whether it's a factory, whether it's a shopping mall, whether it's a mine. First, understand what the consumption profile is. Second thing that's important to look at, even before you even install generation for that specific user, is to see where you can optimize the consumption of that. So, there's a lot of energy efficiency plays, a lot of different technologies available. It's crucial to first apply that, because generally that has a big impact, and a lot of those technologies have got an excellent return on investment. And after you've applied that, then you would look at the generation side of it. You don't necessarily have to first implement those measures and then install the generation, though I think it's important. Applying sound engineering practices and understanding what a specific load profile should look like for a specific client, we already pretty much accurate on what needs to be installed there. So first step is don't oversize, build the system to the right scale. Very important, obviously, that's going to come in is the storage side of it that will massively increase the penetration of solar. That really is, as we've been alluding to, is really the next frontier. But then also, from understanding where the client seat, understanding the needs, you would then proceed to implement. Naturally, there's a lot of projects that would come in, and you mentioned the REAP program, where plants were built not for specific clients or for specific consumers, rather to actually feed power into the network, into the grid. That is there, and there's still a lot of those opportunities available. I think specifically, and what we're starting to see now is in the municipal space, where Munichs we expecting and are allowed to start looking at procuring their own generation. So that would be the next part of it. And naturally, again, storage in time will come into that fold.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for that. So there's a couple of things I want to mention here. First, I can see Frederick is back with us. So Frederick, is your mic working now?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Excellent, Eureka. Excellent.
Yes.
I knew you were going to come back.
Yes.
So before we continue, because I want to give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, because unfortunately we couldn't do that before. And also mention that I can see people are dropping questions in the Q&A box. So that's excellent. We're going to be looking at that. So for people watching, what we're doing is just having a range of questions we want to cover with every speaker, because there are certain points we think that you definitely want to know, and then we come back to your question. So stay with us. And if you have some more questions, just drop them there. So we may not cover all of them, but we will do the best we can. So Frederick, so a couple of minutes to introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Frederick Opokwajokum, and I'm the senior consultant for EcoSource Canada Incorporated. EcoSource Canada Incorporated is actually an integration of over 75 eco-energy manufacturers with over 500 different products, all powered by solar and wind, including solar street lighting, solar air conditionings, solar PV systems, etc., etc. And I would like to say a very big thank you for having me on this panel discussion. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Frederick. And it's a pleasure for us to have you. So, Daniel, I have a question for you, because you are a salesman, so you know everything about figures, numbers. So, in terms of tariff, because that, at the end of the day, I'm sure the people watching us, all they want to know is how much it's going to cost me. That's what they care, right? The rest, that's not their problem. So, it may be a little bit difficult question, but I'm sure you can give us at least a tentative answer. So what kind of tariff would you say we're seeing in the sector at the moment? If you can specify that to Africa, that's good. But if not, in general, that will be appreciated. So what kind of tariff are we seeing, and how can we bring that down, if you have some ideas there?
So, I mean, like you said, it's quite a general question, but I mean, from a domestic point of view, you're looking at a R2.70 odd tariff for domestic use, and for small commercial, probably about R1.60, maybe a bit lower, depending on, if it's through Eskom or City of Tshwane or City of Cape Town. So it all varies. I mean, if you look at what EPCs are offering at the moment in terms of PPA agreements, they're able to give a discount of between 10 and 30% on the current tariffs offered by municipalities and energy providers. So I think it's definitely going in the right direction. There's a lot of room for improvement in terms of where tariffs should be going in the future. But the thing is, year on year being hit by a 13 to 18% increase is not helping the country as a whole, but it's definitely helping the solar sector. So I definitely think that we should be seeing much better increases in terms of tariff discounts in the near future.
Okay, thanks for that, and thank you for taking that question. I know sometimes it's a difficult question; people prefer to dodge it, but you can see that you're definitely a man of courage. So you were happy to take a plunge. So let's carry on. So we were talking about designing projects and building that, and obviously, as we're talking about that procurement, it's very, very important. You want to match the right module with the right inverter, right? It's so important. Otherwise, you have an odd fit, and if you have an odd fit, nothing can work. So I was wondering, Kevin, because you've done a beautiful presentation of Longi, and I think you have some knowledge there, because I'm sure people have been asking you already. So what inverter will be going with the Longi, the Longi product? But from a general point of view, what is I would say the best approach to go by when we're looking to select the right component for solar rooftop? I think it's very interesting, but you're on mute.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, and I think the way that we approach it is not to, let's say, specify a specific partner, but what we do is we work quite extensively with Sungrow and with Huawei, just to ensure the proper integration. So I think the next thing is looking at the sizing. So one of the complexities of the industry in the last 2 to 3 years has been the shift to larger wafers. So the wafer size increase, solar cells, and the whole module business has changed quite a bit. So I think what the industry is in a situation now is it's not just picking an item off the shelf and putting it into your solar system, but there's a lot more effort involved in optimizing solutions, optimizing string sizing and that kind of thing. So I would say it's probably a little bit more complex than a few years ago. And I think the main consideration right now is your module, your module current. So a lot of the large format modules now, you're starting to get situations where your current, if you have, say, for example, 2 strings, that will exceed the input current of your MPPTs on your solar inverters. So it's just a matter of spending more time to optimize your plants and sizing them properly.
Okay, thanks for that. I appreciate that, and I'm sure people have been taking note. And also, just an important information that I noticed when Daniel was speaking. So some people joining from international places, they were not able to make the conversion. But Daniel talked about 2 70 for small commercial to 160 rand. Yeah, and then obviously I've been doing the conversion here, so we're talking about, broadly speaking, between 19 and $11 right? So for per kilowatt hour. So these are just an information for people who wanted to know what tariff look like. So now let's continue with that. So Jacob, if I come back to you again very quickly, and I guess that's the question you really wanted to tackle because you have so much information you want to share. So I want to talk about the key engineering challenges that we're seeing when we're designing project. Again, because with your company, you've done loads of them. So you clearly have a range of projects a problem that you can list just from top of your mind. But what would be the 2, 3, would you say, are the most recurrent that we see?
I mean, I might list more than 3, but I think just while it's still very fresh from Kevin, just in terms of module and matching with inverters, it's extremely relevant, especially with the larger modules that are coming into the market. And what we are finding often, and it really is often a case of educating, in some cases with the biggest respect, even some of the consultants as well, on actually applying modules to inverters. Often one would receive a project as a tender and say, you need to use these models, need to use those inverters. And the actual matching of those are not always optimal. As I said, especially as Kevin mentioned, your current levels, especially with the higher output modules, it's not always as simple as seen. And then also it's a bigger module, so your structures differ, especially if you're mounting those on ground mounted systems. In some cases, one needs to be very careful and have a look at the balance of system cost, and not only assume the balance of system is going to be cheaper with a bigger module. Often those modules are slightly bigger in physical size as well, but not only output. So it's important to understand that. So just to tie in with Kevin on that. But also if you're looking at specific sites, and I mentioned where it's crucial to have the optimal sizing, the obvious things are, is the structure sufficient? So the structural engineer need to look at that. We are often seeing guys mounting angled panels on steel roofs, which from a structural engineering perspective often is a big no-no. So it's back to just that industry knowledge being shared and guys being educated that it really is not a great idea. There are instances where it's possible, not ideal. So often what we also find, especially if it's a flat roof, there's the perception that if you're in the southern hemisphere, you absolutely have to face the panels north at 26.3 degrees. Otherwise, you're not going to get the optimal out of your system. And what we actually see, and again, it's considering that often an east-west installation could even be better. If we're looking at certain flat roofs, you actually get more onto the roof, get a better yield, lower structure costs. So there's all those things that need to be considered. One needs to consider roof loading, not roof loading, wind loading, especially installations at the coast, but even inland systems. And then other challenges in installing systems close to coastal areas. We've had a couple of systems installed literally, essentially not even at the coast. It's a mall that's built into the ocean, essentially. So there you've got different challenges in terms of corrosion. What materials do you use in your structures? What materials do you use in cable racking, things like that? And then perhaps the last thing, just to point out, yes, it's important to match modules. It's important to match inverters, and it's very important, that decision. But the balance of system being your cabling, your connectors, your structures, your distribution boards, breakers, all of those things are just as intricately important when designing these systems. And often people are undercosting in those specific areas. And that's probably a financial challenge we are seeing, where you get less experienced guys not costing those things accurately to also lose. You actually last 25 years. And often those systems would actually eventually end up not performing optimally. So those are all important. But yes, I can go on for 5 hours. You're right, Tony.
I can definitely see you there. So good, good. So we're gonna have another couple of questions for speakers before we're gonna open the floor. So I was gonna direct the question to Ravin, but let me give a chance to Frederick, since obviously he joined recently. I think now it should be warm to jump in and speak. So Kevin, obviously you are a key consultant for EcoSoft Canada, and I'm taking, obviously you having a range of product that you are designing, or all obviously energy efficient. So in terms of the solar market, what are the key technical breakthrough that you see that are helping to bring costs down and achieve a better LCOE? So I don't know if you have some take on that. Frederick, can you hear us? Or maybe it looks like the image could be a little bit frozen. So if that's the case, Ravin, I might have to come back to you then. So would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, please, can you repeat the question?
Sure. So I was talking about the key technical breakthrough that we see happening that are helping to bring down cost. Yeah, LCOE, let's say bring down the cost. What are the key technical breakthroughs do you see at the moment? I could see you mentioned a couple in your presentation.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say the answer that I'm gonna give you is gonna be tailored towards a PV panel or PV panel manufacturers. One of the key aspects is efficiency in panels. We've seen efficiencies going up from 18% up to 23%. It's being pushed to 25%, bordering on 26%, and that's one of the key factors in bringing down cost on plants. Being able to produce more energy out of the same sort of space. And that's one aspect. It also drops down the cost of balance of system. I mean, you're therefore reducing your mounting structures, your cabling, everything else that comes along with it in terms of balance of system plant. Yeah, so as I said, it's efficiency in modules is my answer.
Okay, that's fine. I mentioned that. Okay, Jacob, yeah, go for it.
Sorry, Tony. If I maybe just jump in then, and totally right, Revan. I think especially LCOE, and that's the important levelized cost of energy over the lifetime of the plant. And often there's a big difference between initial capital cost of a plant. A lot of people only look at that number. We actually need to consider what your plant is going to deliver over the 25 years plus that plant is going to be in there. And that is where optimal use of cabling. We're really seeing guys all going as lean and mean on cable sizes, even DC strings, as lean and mean as they can possibly go, where that's not necessarily the right decision for the long term of the plant. So it's perhaps I just wanted to add a little bit on that.
No, I think you're absolutely right in pointing at actually capex is one thing, but LCOE it's another thing when you look at the lifetime cost, because obviously there's always going to be a huge capex that you spend upfront for solar, whether it's a developer doing it or the off-taker directly. But obviously you have to look at the lifetime cost. That's how it becomes favorable when you compare that to fossil fuel alternative, right? So if I may say so, it's good to be able to say fossil fuel alternative source here. So usually it's the other way around. So let me finish up the round of questions with you, Frank. I think Frederick, if he's back, we're gonna give him a chance when we have the Q&A with the floor that we're gonna open in a couple of minutes. So Frank, you talked about storage that you're developing. That I think flow battery. That's what Bushveld is specializing.
That's correct.
Yeah. Would you say now that definitely solar plus storage, it's a feasible option for rooftop solar at the moment, customers?
So we're seeing that's the case when we can stack a couple of values, a couple of benefits to the client with the solar plant. So and maybe just to touch on those benefits. The one is that now that the cap has been raised, we're expecting to see much bigger PV plants, but there's still going to be cases where the client is not necessarily wanting to build a plant to export during the day. And so the amount of renewables penetration that can be achieved, because depending on the load profile, but let's say it's a shopping center, for example, you could probably only achieve, 35 to 40% of your energy requirements with PV without exporting. Now, the moment you add storage, you could do three things. The first is you can significantly build a much bigger PV plant and then capture that extra energy during the day to deploy later. Secondly, you can then deploy that energy into the peak hour and thus start to do some tariff arbitration. And in fact, what we're seeing might be the best case is to capture excess PV during the day to deploy into the peak hours in the evening, and then to charge the battery again on the off-peak tariff at night and deploy that energy again into the morning peak. So you basically double cycle the battery. And the third is, of course, the battery can also provide some energy security against a load shedding. Now, where the vanadium flow battery comes into its own is that you can work the battery super hard all day, every day, 100% depth of discharge, and the electrolyte does not deteriorate. So you're basically putting a battery in place that will run for 20 to 25 years with minimal O&M. you know, and where you're looking at these long duration use cases where the battery needs to work 4, 6, 8 hours a day, plus with those stacked value cases, the economics are working already, you know, to help a solar PV plant become more competitive or a bigger penetration, as well as to do the tariff arbitration and provide energy security.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Frank, for that comprehensive answer. So, Frederick, I think you should be back with us, and I believe we should be. Yes. Okay, excellent. So let me jump on you for question now before we run into other issues. So, net metering, it's definitely a component of the whole industry, per se. Yes. So let me just ask you a question at the level of Africa, and you may want to specify that to the country where you are, which I believe would be Ghana, if I'm correct. So, what is would you say the status of net metering regulation and in Africa, and do you think it has an effect in the adoption of PV residential market? And this is a question that's one of our a person in the audience has been asking. So now we're not diving into the question that people have asked, and I can see there are more and more questions. Guys, I can tell you that you are very interesting, because people are literally just, you know, shoving us with a question. So yeah, Frederick, the impact of net metering. So is it happening? And if yes, does it have an impact in the adoption of solar PV, both residential and commercial?
Okay, thank you very much. As you rightly said, some of the regulatory mechanisms that are used to incentivize the production of energy from renewable sources includes feed-in tariff, net metering, and the grid code, and the list goes on and on. But what's happening within the African sub-region is that, yes, countries, including Ghana, have adopted the use of net metering system to incentivize the use of renewable energy, specifically solar, wind, and other renewable energy sources. But what is happening is that it has always been a challenge when it gets to the implementation stage. You see, there is a huge problem when it comes to sustainable implementation. You see that in Africa, some countries are shifting from the use of, let's say, feed-in tariff to sometimes competitive tendering, all because there is always a challenge at the implementation stage. See, the policies are formulated so beautifully, but when it gets to sustainable implementation, that is where the challenge is. That's why sometimes you see countries shifting from the use of one mechanism, pricing mechanism, to the other. But in general, in the rooftop solar market, when there is a net metering system, yes, it's going to help, because what happens is that then generators, being industrial, households, or commercial purposes, are able to calculate how they can offset their power, calculating how much is being connected to the grid and how much is being used by the generator. And so when it comes to in policy terms, yes, it's good, but the implementation has always been a problem. And so you see that even in Ghana currently, there is a halt on net metering system, grid code, and feed-in tariff, because it has been that the country generation is very high, and the government sees it as a challenge, such that the previous government signed a lot of PPAs. And so currently what is happening is that the current government has halted the use of feed-in tariff, net metering system, and the grid code for some time now. And I think that very soon we are going to come back and then use the mechanism again. But generally, I think it's good. But then it has always been a problem when it gets to the implementation stage. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Frederick. I know that wasn't an easy question. So let me another question that I've seen on the floor, and then I'm just gonna address it to you, Tabo, because I'm sure if I ask that to Frank, he would say this is not necessarily the case. So the question is talking about the battery prices, right? Because I'm sure you are a developer, and I'm sure for some of your customer, when you're designing project, you clearly obviously will suggest battery. And I'm sure, because this is an industry I'm in as well, and that's something I'm facing as well. So as soon as you add the battery, it can easily add up another 30%, even potentially 40% on the pricing. So the question is, why are battery prices so expensive? Is it a way to bring that to bring it down? So what would you say when, because for a customer coming to you say that, why is it so expensive? I want a battery, but it's too expensive. I can't afford it at the moment. So why is it the case?
Sure. So I think to the original, the first point around the importance of batteries in the context of the projects we look to roll out, certainly there's no denying the importance. A lot of the projects we look to roll out require a fair amount of storage. But what we've seen is the fall in battery prices hasn't quite tracked or has followed the fall in solar prices, but we just haven't got to the price point that makes sense at a small scale. Right, I must qualify that economies of scale play quite a huge role in the larger CNI projects, particularly those in the mining space. We've come up with quite competitive tariffs, especially when you compare against diesel generator costs and that sort of thing. And I can't remember which one of the other panelists had a graph that shows the decrease in price over the last 10 or so years. And we're quite confident that in the short term, we will see a price point that makes sense. As to the reason why battery technology is still quite expensive, I'll leave that to Frank to present his view, particularly on the vanadium side. But I think where we are with lithium ion and kind of the manufacturing process and the components that go into the various cells, I just think the individual components add up eventually to have these large costs. But we're not too far off in terms of viability and grid parity. As I said, in large-scale proposals, particularly the funded, call them power purchase agreement-based solutions, we have started to see some competitive tariffs.
Okay, excellent. That's good. So you want to have a 30-second answer for that, Frank, or want me to move on? Why is battery so expensive?
No, I think Tabu's got it spot on. I mean, we've seen incredible volumes ramp up in the solar space that has brought the project prices down. And I think it was Yaku who put up the slide about how much the pricing has come down on solar projects globally over the last decade. Now, I think we're in that beginning of the ramp with storage, because the need is now there for storage. And so the commercialization and volume ramp up of storage technologies is happening globally, and this is driving the price down as well. So I mean, if you look at any long-term storage projections, you see quite aggressive learnings being promoted in terms of where the price point is going, and I think that's true for all of the technologies. I do think that vanadium has a lot of learning that can still come. So the price point, we're expecting the price point to improve faster than other technologies over the next 2 or 3 years. And then I think the technologies all have a unique, a slightly different niche that they play in. And of course, where you can stack values on the battery, up front, the battery might look expensive, but again, if you put it into a project and you work out the levelized cost of storage and you work out the levelized cost of energy in a project, I mean, for example, diesel replacement is an absolute no-brainer with PV battery systems. So if there's somewhere running on diesel today, you can do it a lot cheaper with a solar battery system. And that's a fact. What's also becoming very exciting is that solar batteries are in many cases already competitive with peak tariffs. Peak tariffs being provided by operators, and that price point is coming down both because the energy component, the energy generation component, which is mostly solar, is still getting cheaper, and the storage technology is getting cheaper fast. And so, I've often joked in conferences that there's a threshold of how high utility tariffs can get before everybody leaves the grid because they can do it cheaper with solar and battery. And the reality is that on the price path that Eskom is following at the moment, we're not that far away before. In fact, it's arguable that in the residential space, it's already there, that it's cheaper to leave the grid and run your own PV battery system than to stay on the grid. And hence you see this, as I mentioned, this huge explosion in residential solar, solar and battery systems last year. And that's going to flow to the rest of the market. So I think whether it's expensive or not is really relative. I think what we're seeing is that it is actually competitive to grid tariffs in the right applications.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with you here. And we mentioned that already for people looking at us. So the key thing here is to look at lifetime costs. That's really where you see the difference. Because when you're going for another solution, it might seem cheaper today, but as Frank mentioned, so just to simplify that you need to replace your diesel generator after 10 years, every 10 years or so, or the cost of fuel. All of a sudden, when you do the math, you might be in a situation whereby solar battery is better. So I have a question still from the floor to our manufacturers here. So first I'll start with JS Solar because the person was saying that he loves JS Solar, so that's his favorite brand. So I think your ad are working, should I say? But he's asking, he's complaining, but it's taking too long to get the product because they have to come all the way from Asia. Why can't we have a factory, for example, in South Africa? So either Daniel or Ravi want to respond to that. But I also want to extend the question to my friend Kevin here from Lungi because the question will be the same. So what about manufacturing basically locally? Because that's the way I was going to cut down both time and cost. So what would you guys say to that?
Sure. So I'll jump in. I think for any tier one module manufacturer, having a localization strategy is key moving forward. I mean, it's the only way you're going to be doing large scale, utility scale business in the country. JA Solar is specifically working on various localization strategies. I don't know if setting up a factory is in the books, in the short term, possibly in the long term. But I mean, we're always looking at ways of having certain components manufactured here locally. And to decrease, lead times in terms of shipping. It's also improving on a, a quarterly basis. So it's a push, but we're definitely working on it.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for that. So you want to take it as well, Kevin?
Yeah, actually, I have an entirely different view on local manufacturing. So just a little bit of history about me personally. I have been involved since 2008 in local manufacturing, various different companies. And I think you actually understand the let's say from a local manufacturing, the challenges that we face. So from Shanghai, within 2 hours, you can probably visit 5 of the biggest manufacturers in the world. And all you need to do is have a look at one of those campuses. Now, Longi, for example, they're shipping approximately 50 megawatts every single day. And from a local manufacturing point of view, how can you compete with those economies of scale? Then you look at the second problem is the manufacturing challenges for various different reasons in a South African context. So, those also put obstacles. So if you actually go through your costing, your local manufacturing is much more expensive than importing a fully manufactured module in China. So the next question is what actually brings value? And the value is trying to bring the most reliable, lowest cost solar panels that is going to deliver a power plant that produces power over the lifetime of that particular project. So I think the thing that we need to be doing is changing our mindset and saying, how can we actually create jobs in the local market? And the best way to do that is to let the large manufacturers, mass production, do what they do best, and that's manufacture solar panels. And let's focus on the policies and regulations that are going to help us to grow the industry and create that value chain. For example, let's say somebody who's installing as a residential installer, they're going to have you're going to probably have 5 to 10 guys working for that small company, and there are scales around that. So so that's the one aspect. Then if you look at it at a utility scale, if you look at your financial model, I mean, let's say, for example, on your tariff, that's a local manufacturer model will, let's say, for example, will cost 1 cent per kilowatt hour more. Now you do those cost comparison using a local manufacturer who employs maybe 200 people. What is the impact on that additional cost in that tariff? And you'll see quite quickly that there is no balancing act there. It costs the economy much more in increased electricity tariffs with local production. So let's rather focus on getting product into the market and let the manufacturers do what they do best.
Yeah. So I can't help but jump on that. So why I, in general, agree with what you said, 2 caveats. The first one is exactly what we've learned from COVID. Having all the product coming from one place is clearly posing an issue, because obviously when you're having issue like COVID, where the international travel could be interrupted to some extent, or maybe the country where the component are coming from is having a particular issue that is affecting the whole of the industry. I know it has been resolved relatively quickly. However, that's a lesson for us that we should be learning there. That's why, for me, there's still a value to have pockets of manufacturing in different places. The second thing, yes, while we're talking about cost in here, but we should also think about skills. It's about passing the skills to people so that you can have a homegrown talent that can also develop their own their own product. And if they are not having the opportunity to work alongside big manufacturers, that can also sometimes cause a certain issue. That's what I'm saying. Why I agree with what you said is absolutely true. It's just those 2 points that I wanted to raise, which for me is also very, very important if we are also looking at developing the sector in Africa. So let me jump to the...
Can I just respond to that quickly?
Okay, go ahead.
So if you look at the current supply chain, because of quality issues, we're not able to produce glass to the required standard. So we have to import the glass anyway. If you look at the thermoplastics and backsheet that are required, we can't manufacture them locally, so they have to be imported anyway. So 90% of your bill of materials is imported anyway. Then if you look at your supply chain, starting from the silicon, there's basically 4 silicon manufacturers, all based in China, that control the silicon market. So if you look at the value that manufacturing a solar module has in South Africa, or the African context, for best-in-class manufacturing, the job creation potential is very, very small, because that is a highly automated process that it's robotics, it's control systems, it's automation. There is actually no, if you look at the cost per person that is employed, there is actually no real value in the manufacturing. And what's more important for me is to get the guys putting solar on the roofs. There's much more job creation potential in upskilling technicians, putting guys on roofs, and doing it that way.
Okay, I think we can have a discussion on and on, but for me, I was talking more about the pattern, because who owns the pattern can actually conquer part of the world tomorrow. And I'm saying that to own the pattern, you need to have the skills, and that's where I was actually talking about. But that's fine. Let's move on. So, Robin, I have a question for you, because Jakob mentioned, and also you were talking about the cable, and somebody here is saying that how are the cable used for solar panel tested? Are they third-party tested or not? Because they can have a massive impact on the whole, I would say, efficiencies of the whole installation. So I don't know from what you know. So how are you testing those cables? Is it internally or is it third-party tested?
So I can speak for only the cables that are attached to the solar panels. Those are, those cables that come, and it comes in two sizes. I mean, it's 1.2 meters, and I think it's 30 centimeters that comes attached to the PV panels. Those are tested in both ways, internally and external testing we have done on those cables. In terms of the other cables that are used on a balance of system plant, I have no idea what they are using to test those cables.
Okay, so maybe Frederick, you want to jump on it as well. So if you have any idea from your knowledge, generally speaking. So in fact, I can even expand it because we're talking about the cable here, but let's expand into the whole balance of the system just to understand. So from your knowledge, is it third party tested or everything is left with the EPC or the manufacturer?
What happens is that I think with manufacturers internally, testing starts from internal, where manufacturers will test their cables to see their efficiency. But then there are also external testing sources where you can go in for testing and others. But what happens is that let me narrow it down to the rooftop solar projects. You see,
Frederick, can you hear us? I think Frederick is having probably some technical challenge as well. So, gentlemen, like I said, we only have 10 minutes left, and because what I like to do, I like us just to have like a wrap up the conversation, because there's still a lot of questions I have to say, but obviously there's only 10 minutes left. But I'm sure there's one or two key messages that you want to leave the floor with. So I'm just going to go around, and if you can please just spend about just a minute to pass on that message, and we can all wrap up. So I don't know if we start. Should we start with you, Tabo, if that's fine, and then and I have Kevin and Frank to be ready. So Tabo.
Cool. Thanks once again, Tony and the team for putting this together. I think for me, the key message and key takeaway is that the need is huge. When we look at the continent, when we look, I mean, South Africa is no stranger to outages now. We understand the position that Eskom is in, the coal-fired power stations that need to come offline in the next 5 to 10 years. There's a massive gap. And I think, you know, a forum like this and, you know, the various participants will be quite crucial to closing this gap and ensuring that, you know, the energy supply market is thriving and is healthy, which ultimately has a direct impact on economy and civilization. So I look forward to engaging with my fellow panelists and some of the people that I see asking questions, and let's look to build this industry together and make sure that the continent is secure. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. So Kevin, can you go next if you don't mind, please?
Yeah, sure. So I think the message that I'd like to leave is that the perception is that solar and storage is expensive. If you took your money to the bank and you invested the same amount that you would put in a solar plant, you might get, if you're lucky, somewhere around about 10% interest on that money. If you invest in a solar asset, you're probably going to get somewhere between 25 and 30%, maybe more, depending on how the tariffs escalate. So if you start taking a lifetime view of a solar asset, it is by far the cheapest form of electricity. And I think we just need to shift our mindsets and focus on the lifetime of the power plants and lifetime costs, rather than just focus on the upfront costs.
Thank you. Excellent. So Frank, would you mind please chipping in?
Sure. Thanks, Tony. I think what we've seen today is super exciting. Again, that you know this wave of solar is just continuing to grow. It is, as has been said, the cheapest form of energy. The markets globally are growing massively. In South Africa, they're growing massively. In the rest of Africa, they're also growing extremely fast on the back of this technology. And, that's got to give the punt for the storage side as well. I think that second wave is coming along with solar, and the two together will allow an even deeper penetration of renewables into our energy systems at all scales, from the micro home to the massive utility power plant. I think that's super exciting for the industry and for the future of energy and clean energy. I think we're all firm believers that we need to walk this path in order to address the challenges of climate change and also the challenges of poverty and lack of energy in Africa. So it's super exciting that the technologies are now at a point where we can deliver, cost-effective green energy services.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Frank. Appreciate that. Daniel?
Yes, just to add on to what Frank was saying, it's a very exciting time to be in the industry. I mean, if you look historically over the past, 8 years or so, I mean, the largest panel size was probably a 250. Now we're sitting at, 550, 600 watts. And I mean, lithium ion was only, recently introduced, in the past couple of years. I mean, we used to install 2-volt lead acid batteries, and, that was the technology back then. So the market has taken, leaps and bounds in the last couple of years, and it's only continuing to get stronger and, grow more rapidly. I mean, if you look at mine specifically, being early adopters for renewable technologies, it's a very exciting time to be in.
Excellent. Jakob?
Guys, not to repeat, and I absolutely agree with all my fellow panelists, you guys are spot on. It really is exciting times we're approaching now. We're just getting started. Our time to make a difference in this world is right now. So let's start today. I'll stop it there.
Good. Ravin, can you please give us your final word for the conversation?
Yeah, it was mentioned by one of the panelists that about 600 million people in Africa don't have access to electricity. And I think the quickest, not only the cheapest, but the quickest means to access of electricity is the renewable industry, in particular, a PV industry, to access electricity. And coupled with storage, you can get energy security around a 24-hour scenario. So yeah, that's what I'd like to leave.
Excellent. Frederick, is your sound system better now? Can you share your final word with us, please?
Okay, for me, I think my final words will be going to policymakers within the African sub-region that in spite of all the existing policies, there are still some policy gaps as far as rooftop solar projects are concerned. And for example, there is a lack of price differential mechanisms. Currently, there is still no clear price policy mechanism for rooftop solar projects. And a key factor to ensure financial sustainability of the rooftop solar sector is determining tariffs for the rooftop solar segment by regulators. So, which is supposed to be different from ground-mounted large-scale solar projects. So, given the cost differentials between the two, so separate tariffs for rooftop projects are required for gross metered systems. For example, many countries within Southern Africa do not have separate tariffs for rooftop projects, and therefore fail to create the right incentive structure for the market to develop. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Whoa, I have to say this has been a brilliant conversation, and I can still feel like there's so many aspects we haven't even touched on, right? So, and definitely I would challenge my my colleagues here from Solar Quarters to make sure that they can organize another such a conversation. So in conclusion, all I can say is the solar market in Africa at the moment stands at around 6 to 7 gigawatts, right? So that's the latest figure. It could be even higher than that. So out of it, from what I know as well, you have about 1 gigawatt that's actually for CNI. Most of it is solar rooftop. Obviously, that's encouraging to see, but it's nothing compared to the potential that it can be, because there's no reason. Look at solar is the one source that is common across every 54, 55 country in Africa. And if you're looking at all the roofs that we are having, there's no reason why that common source that we have wouldn't be able to cover all those roofs that we see. And I believe by bringing people that we have today, so developers, manufacturers, investors, and also media partners, there's no reason why we can't achieve that in the next 10 to 15 years. So ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to have you today. And I'm hoping we're going to continue this conversation very, very soon. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the esteemed panelists for such an insightful session, sparing your precious time and extending your support for this event. And I would also like to thank every person who has attended this event. So also, Tony sir, thank you for moderating the session today. So with this positive note, we are ending today's event, and I promise you to come back soon with more knowledge-driven virtual events. Till then, bye from our end, and please do take care of yourself and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.